What if you can make a fully working app in just the time it takes you to make a coffee? Well, more realistically, a sandwich. Without knowing any code, any JavaScript, any React, just a fun idea, a little bit of creativity, and lots and lots of clarity. Well, my name is Shirish. I use AI to build software every day in my work. And with this channel, I would like to share those tips, tricks that I learned while building the softwares, games, and fun apps. In the last episode, we actually were on this mission to build a world clock. A clock or an app where you basically add cities where your friends and coworkers are so that you can check out the time in their city and book meetings, calls when they're sleeping. Well, not exactly. But in the last episode, this is what we were able to put together by using Cursor, this IDE, which you can use to just prompt and build your app without really knowing a bunch of code, right? We take this just a step further because if you see the app that we're able to put together, it doesn't have a lot of personality. It doesn't really look that fun, creative. It doesn't have a lot of good design to it. And that is why we are actually going to use a new tool today, which is called Figma. Figma essentially is like a design tool that a lot of UI UX designers use to basically make designs. We kind of got a little bit of a preview of this tool in the last video, but today we're going to take it a bit further. We'll use Figma's new feature, which is Figma Make, to basically prompt our way to making this boring looking app into a bit more fun and give it some personality. Now, Figma essentially works the same way Cursor or your ChatGPT works. All you have to do is just give it detailed prompt about what you're trying to make and what you're trying to build, and it's going to design it for you. Now, for example, here's some tools that people have built using Figma Make. You can see people have built like cool 3D animations, apps, websites, even like chess, games, design systems, wallpapers, clocks. There is a bunch of cool shit that people have done, and I'm going to link this gallery in the resources. And this is like a sneak preview of what one of the community members fully functioning app. You can click around different stuff. This is, I think, like a grocery app, if I'm not wrong. You can favorite things, you can add things, and this is a fully functional app, right? Well, we're going to similarly use a Figma Make tool to revamp our design. Now, before we jump in, let's address this quick argument that you keep happening on the internet from time to time. Will AI replace artists and designers? Let's think about it. What is art? What is a good design? What makes something good, aesthetically pleasing, a good design? Art basically is something that captures the creator's perspective, lived experiences, the way they think about something, their beliefs. This is something an AI cannot replicate. It doesn't have its own experiences. It doesn't have its own beliefs. Well, to a certain extent. And that's why it can imitate what a human being can think like or can look or can perceive, but it really struggles at really creating original art, right? And that is where you can clearly tell on the internet what is made by an AI and what is actually something that an artist has put an effort in making, right? It's kind of like similar to, say, for example, when you look at something, a piece of music, a movie, a poster, it moves you. You feel seen by the artist, you feel understood by that piece of art. That is something AI cannot do on its own. So look at AI as a tool, like a camera, like a piece of paper, like a paintbrush, but not as a complete creative engine. So the artist has to use AI as a creative tool. Now, of course, because of AI, there's going to be a lot of slop on the internet because AI has reduced the barrier of entry to making certain things like apps, art, images, stuff like that. But it also actually presents a really interesting and unique opportunity for all the artists and designers out there to actually lean more into adding human experiences, your own experience, your own beliefs into creating whatever that you are creating, and you can use AI as a tool in your tool set. Having said that, let's use this perspective, essentially build our app and redesign our app, and we can see through prompt engineering how we can actually slowly shape up this app, give it some personality and make it stand out in a certain way. So before actually jumping into improving our existing app. Let's see what kind of results we will get if we just not put enough effort into prompting. And so we can actually compare how and what kind of difference does it make when we actually prompt it the right way. I want to build an app. So I'm going to try to be as vague as possible. And let's hit it. If you see, we really haven't done a lot of effort into explaining what exactly we want, what is our intention with all of this, what kind of design choices we want to make, how it should look like, how it should behave like. So there are a lot of details that are missing here, but we will see what it actually comes with when we are really vague with it. And this is our first version that's ready. Okay, so this is as basic as it gets. There is not a lot of charm to it. There is not a lot of creativity to it. It doesn't bring any delight to you. Now, let's see what we can actually do to improve this. So I was actually going through the Figma blog and I found a really interesting article, and I'm going to link it in the video here. This was written by the Figma team, and what it tells you is that you should, in short, be providing as many details and constraints and clarity as possible to your prompt. And in this article, they really compare it kind of like it's similar to cooking, right? You have a recipe, the recipe has clear instructions, clear constraints, and an objective, and you use this recipe to follow that instruction set, and that's the dish that you get at the end of it. I've kind of synthesized what that is being discussed in this article, and let's kind of go through it. So the secret sauce here is this TCEBC framework. I know, I guess we got to work on the framework name, but I guess it is what it is, right? So what this framework basically talks about is how you can clarify to the agent and the Figma Make AI tool how to design actually better. All right. So the secret sauce in making your app actually really look good is this TCEBC framework. I know we gotta work on the naming. It sounds way worse than the last MCP government agency like name we had. This is like a really difficult acronym. But anyways, what this framework basically gives you is a blueprint that you can follow to provide the clarity, the details that will actually make your outcome better, right? So the first thing is task. So you have to describe what you're actually building, and you got to be specific. So we cannot just say make an app. That's too vague. That allows the LLM to just go in 100 different directions, give you something that you don't really expect. What we can actually say here is that, okay, we're building a world clock app, and of course you can get more descriptive, more engaging with it. But the first step is task. The next thing is context. Who is it for? Why does it exist? Where it fits in? So you can be as detailed as possible into expanding. This world clock is for remote working teams to coordinate time zones across different cities that they are working with. And I can add more context that it's for old people, it's for children, it's for this age bracket. And this comes from a user interface and user experience designing world where you kind of have to describe the user persona in as much detail as possible so you can build apps and products that are more empathetic, takes into account the challenges, friction points for these kind of users. So this is where you can really be making a difference in how the end product is going to look like and how it's going to be serving your users better. The next thing is elements. So this is where you can be really specific with certain kind of UI components that need, right? So of course, if it's a world clock app, it's going to have like a clock, it's going to have all those kind of things. But this is again tying back to what we talked about before, how as designer you can be different in this whole world of AI where the barrier is just so low. So this is where you can actually put in your own creativity. That, okay, I would like to have nice, cool, actually clock-like looking slider instead of, or a dial that you have on telephones instead of just like a normal clock input, right? And that's going to set you different, and that probably also make it look much more unique than what is already out there, right? So you can say, well, I would like to see map, I would like to see 2D maps. Instead of the slider, I would like to see like a phone-like dial, just different stuff, right? Instead of just showing 24 hours, maybe show the sun, moon, or maybe show the sky, just different sort of stuff, right? So that's for elements. And then the behavior, right? How things should work, how it should interact, right? Dragging the slider updates all the city times simultaneously, right? So all of these things you can really get into detail and define the behavior, how it should behave when you click somewhere, what should happen. So be as explicit as possible here, because that's going to help the Figma Make tool to really set up different flows, flows and different transitions and really make it more interactive, right? And finally, right, the constraint, well, just make it good. Please make it really nice and interesting. Just doesn't get you far enough. What you have to do is you have to really specify what kind of constraints are you building it for. Really focused and actually gives you what you expect, right? So, I want it mobile first. I want it for iOS system. I want it to have a dark mode. I want it to be accessible for XYZ kind of users, right? So all of these details you can actually put in, and you can also specify the load times and all those kind of things, that it has to be lightweight. It has to be this, because at the end of the day, if you look at the Figma Make tool, it actually uses Claude Sonnet or Gemini and all these apps to write the code, to generate the code, and then present it to you as an actual functioning prototype. So at the end of the day, we will actually have a prototype that is functioning because it is generating the code for it, right? And that's where the behavior is important, because all that logic is going to get fed into that code. The constraints are important, so it doesn't build something crazy that's slow or it's just not accessible to a bunch of users, right? So this is kind of like the framework that will just set us apart, right? Now, based on this framework, let's see how we can actually design our prompt. All right, so this is our prompt as per the framework that we just discussed, right? So task, build a world clock interface context for remote workers tracking team availability across time zones. Should feel premium and minimal. Of course, I guess if you guys are trying this out, you can actually really expand on this and add your own personality, make it more unique and per your taste, right? Now, elements, city card showing city name, current time, time zone offset, then a time slider, 24-hour to check what time it will be when, right? This is pretty interesting because this is kind of like the core of our app, because you would want to know at this time what is the time in this city or that city, and that's the key element here. The next one is add city button, remove city option, maximum 6 cities visible, dragging slider up. This is the behavior section. What would happen when user clicks on some of these elements, right? So dragging the slider updates all the cities simultaneously. Times calculate relative to the user's current zone time. Smooth animation, cities persist between sessions. So this is something I think we can talk about later. And then these are the constraints. It has to be a mobile first design, dark mode aesthetics, SF Pro font, system font fallback. So all these kind of things. And you can kind of change it based on how you want certain design choices to be made. But this is where those definitions should go. And then finally, what I've said here is that use the attached design screenshot for style and reference. And that is because if you recall in the last video, we were actually using a dribble design for reference. This is a dribble design that we got from Alexi, and I'm gonna again put his design link in from dribble in the YouTube video description. But this is what that design looks like, right? And this is going to be our core inspiration for the Figma design. And let's see how far it can get with it, okay? Now coming to the tool that is the core focus of this tutorial, this is Figma Make. I think Figma Make comes with the pro plan of Figma, and so you gotta have a pro subscription if I'm not wrong. And if you go here in the Figma section, you can just create a new Figma Make file. This is the primary interface that you're working with. So you're going to be chatting with the Figma AI through just prompting and chatting with it to improve the design iteratively over the course of your development. So the first prompt that we give it is going to be aligned with our framework that we just talked about, right? So I'm going to paste that here. And what I've already done is I've already attached the screenshot here. But what you can also do is you can attach a design that you already have from Figma, or a design system that you already have. And we can actually talk about this at the end of the video. So stick to the end. And I'm going to give you a tip that if you have a really old project from Figma, or if you have a design that you like from some other product, how you can use those screenshots to create a new design system, so that every time you add a new screen, every time you add a new feature, it consistently follows those designs. Because it is quite common that you end up designing a product or an app, and then after a while you try to add a new feature, so you were again interacting with Figma Make, but then this new screen just looks absolutely different than the previous one. So I'm going to share a tip on how to kind of get it all right and how to make it look consistent. But for now, the first prompt that we give to our Figma Make is according to just the framework that we just basically discussed, right? I have made a slight change here. Just I've kind of like defined, hey, make a circular dial for the time slider, so it kind of looks like the screenshot reference. And I've also said that use the attached design screenshot for style reference. Let's see what it comes up with, and we can iteratively give it more feedback and kind of update and change it, right? So right now I can see it's thinking. You can see in the constraint I have actually mentioned that, oh, it should persist the city session between reloads, correct? So it remembers these are the cities that I've already added and doesn't forget, and I don't have to add it every time. And so it's kind of reasoning with itself that actually maybe I should use a database, but for this prototype it's fine. We don't have to use database. You can just store that thing in the local browser session, which is amazing, which is exactly what we want for now. But do note that in Figma Make AI tool you can actually connect with database using something like Supabase, which is something we'll try to do in coming YouTube video series. We'll actually try to connect to a database system, so it actually tracks the user, it actually tracks your settings, the data that you input. So that's going to be quite fun. So you can see it's actually creating a lot of code. It's actually creating a lot of React code. It's doing its own state management. It's adding certain cities. So you will here actually end up getting the code, right? So let's talk about the interface. So the left side is basically where you end up chatting with the Figma Make, and you can see what kind of reasoning it's doing, all the progress it's making. But the center is your canvas, right? This is where you see the interface, and you switch here and you can see that code. This is where you can navigate through different pages. So if your app has multiple pages, you can actually navigate through those pages. This is where it's the settings part, and this is where you can share the design once it's ready with other folks, or you can even publish it on your own personal domain. But an interesting thing here is that you can actually copy this entire design and paste it in Figma. So once this design is generated, you can actually update and edit it using Figma design tool, and that just gives you a lot of leverage to work with. Okay, I can see that our user interface is pretty ready, and let's try to compare it with what it was able to do. So this is our input image. You can see there is a world map, there are all these cities, and there is this beautiful slider to just change the time and everything. So you see the updated time in respective cities. What it was able to do was it was able to actually recreate that time list of cities. It is able to actually add those cities. You can search different cities, add. This is already amazing. This is already a significant amount of progress. Where it actually didn't do a decent job was with this slider. And I can understand why, because I think it was just struggling to get the slider aligned. And I think I'm not so sure what it ended up doing. Maybe we have to fix this. So let's try to use this opportunity to fix some of these issues in the interface, right? So by default, it actually shows you any issues, right? And any problems. So let's start with simple things. You can essentially select elements and give it instructions specific to that element. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to say, I don't think, see that the clock is working pretty okay. I don't think it's doing a decent job of like interactivity. And I'm not really sure what the reason behind that is. Of course, you can anytime just dig into this code, right? This is all React code, and you can just dig into it and kind of like see where and why it is making certain decisions. But you can actually also ask it all these questions. So we can actually try to figure out this problem just trying to prompting it. But first of all, I would like to deal with the simple issues. First, let's remove this world map icon. I don't think we need it. We can do something else with it later on. And then second is we would like to have these things aligned, right? So I'm going to say, yeah, I don't understand why this is there, and maybe we should just get rid of it. Okay. All right, let's see. So other than that, it says, okay, this is my current location, Madrid, 11:55 p.m. because we've just basically moved this, right? And then it shows London, it shows Tokyo, and it also shows what is the time difference here. So that is already quite a decent amount of progress, I would say. So what I've done in the second section is that it actually showed me that there was some kind of error in the code, and should I fix it? I'm just going to say, yeah, sure, fix this error, but then I'm going to also give it some additional direction. Again, there is another error. I'm going to fix it too. Alright, so what I've done is I've also given it some additional instruction. Just definitely align these items, right? Because what it has done is there are these cross items. In order to remove the city, we definitely don't want that right now because it's causing some alignment issues. What I would instead ask it to do is okay, let's try this one first. All right, perfect. So what now happens is when you hover over this city, it shows you the cross icon. But I think the other mistake it has done is that the alignment is not that good. So I'm going to share the feedback about that. And this is pretty much similar to what you would end up doing as a designer. Now, in my personal opinion, just copying this design the way it is right now and then doing all these tiny changes manually is much more easier than prompting it. But for this tutorial, we're just strictly going to stick to prompting, and let's see how we can actually prompt it to make it actually align properly. So I'm going to select this div and I'm going to say, all right, let's see if it follows this. All right, so what it has done is it has basically modified the CSS property and added the edge full occupy height. All right, so I'm going to look into it and see why it's still not showing up the way we want. So it's kind of like asking me for my input on these things. Okay, if I have to match this, what adding a match height to both time and text side of div would require changing both. Would you like me to proceed? Sure. I really don't know what it's trying to tell me at this point, but I'm just open to try it out. I think if this part doesn't work, we can pretty much try and move on and try to get this thing working. But I still kind of like this neat touch here. This is quite interesting. Okay, I don't think it kind of like understood what it got it. Yes, this is perfect. Let's try to fix this next thing. Quite interesting because, sometimes you would like to brainstorm on what you would like to do in certain kind of UI problems, and this Figma Make AI tool is also really, really good for that you can just ask it, hey, this is what I would like to achieve, what options do you propose, and let's see what it comes up with. Honestly, that's weird. I'll fix to prevent any. Okay, I can see the chevron icon, but okay, well, let's wait. Updated the hover icons. Okay, I think I was able to update the icon. I can go even a step further and tell it that, hey, this text change animation is quite abrupt and I would like it to be not this way, but it's fine for now, right? So let's see once we remove. Oh, this is perfect. I like that. Let's try to add a city. I'm gonna add Los Angeles, and this looks good, right? But now let's see what it came up with as an option to show and make this current location as standard. So one option is subtle text, subtle accent border left. Interesting, like that. Background tints slightly, a different background color, maintains minimalism. Yeah, that is kind of like the style that we are working with here. I don't think the icon would be good enough here. Maybe because in future we would like to add favorite cities and stuff, and this would kind of clash with it. Bolder text, not a good. Top position divider. Interesting. Maybe can we do option 1 and option 5 together? I think so. We can try that. We can try. Or maybe let's try option 2 and option 5 together. So, as you can see, you're kind of like trying to solve the problem immediately. Of course, in this situation, what you can also do is you can also step away, go to something like Dribble or check out other tools or apps and kind of get inspirations from them, take screenshots, upload those screenshots here, and actually have those interface ideas integrated here really quickly. So just the feedback loop and all is just reduced so significantly that it just makes a huge difference in how fast you're working and how much you can dedicate all that time in solving much bigger and complicated problem. And this for now already looks really good for me. What I would like to next do is when this time actually changes, this text animation is quite abrupt. So I would like to make it look a little bit better. And so I'm going to actually try to find what animations are good here. And we can just tell it, hey, when the text changes, I would like to have a better animation. So basically what I'm trying to do here is that in casinos, when you have the slot machines and you pull the slot and the animation that you get is what I'm trying to do. I don't know what to call it really. But let's see if Figma Make has an idea about that. Now, in this case, we're doing a really bad job of providing clarity and context and all this kind of things. But let's see how it does in this case. Smooth counter-like animation. All right, fair, interesting. Cool, so I'm kind of like happy with this interface for now. And we might do a different other things with it. But for now, let's just focus on this elephant words, what exactly this interface is like. And this interface is pretty much resembles to, hard to describe, but maybe what I will try to say to the gauge, like a navigation gauge, I would say. I could be wrong. I don't know what we'll get out of this. Let's stick with it. Interesting. So I think it was able to just like keep the dial actually has some issue. Not sure why, but at least the behavior is something that I was able to get it. So we're going to give it another go and then maybe we can essentially just try to explore other alternatives to fix this issue, right? Let me just see. So I'm going to just take a screenshot and again again try to point it out that this issue is not able to actually going to fix it, because if it's not going to fix it, we'll have to figure out how do we prompt it better to fix this issue. We'll give it another go, and if not, we'll try to fix this in the next video. And I think also in the next video I'll also give a tip on how to make our designs really consistent. So we've got this design, and how to, if you have to add another feature, if you have to add user profile and all those kind of things, that new screen has to be really aligned with this interface, right? So what we'll do is we'll try to figure out how we can build or how we can achieve that whenever we're adding new screens, the UI stays consistent throughout and doesn't really change. Well, in this case, for this problem, I can fix the overflow within the selected time element. I can change the background to semicircle shape, only show markers for 12 hours, fair. Fix the hour variable positioning so appear on the circle's edge instead of clustered in center. I think what I'm going to say is just fix what I can within the selected element or make changes to the... And now, at least working with Figma Make, what I'm realizing is because it's such a design first tool, you don't really get much view into the code, or you just not likely to look into the code and to actually pinpoint the issue yourself. Not that I can, I'm not much of a React person, but this is just observation that I can make quickly. But whereas if it was cursor, I would just quickly open up the file, just try to look at the code and take a guess that maybe this is something that might be causing the issue, and then give that also as an additional context to the agent. But my guess is this is probably because we're not really prompting it well, but we're just being a little bit vague in this case. All right, cool. Okay, so what I can see is it has fixed the issue of actually changing the dial. It's still not semicircle, but it is kind of like fixed this issue a little bit. What we can do is we can actually just leave it here. Like we can just leave this progress that we made it here, and maybe come around in the next video and try to again address this issue, figure out different solutions, what we can do in terms of prompting to fix these kind of issues better, what additional context we can provide to fix this better. But I believe that in a couple of iterations we can actually fix this issue, and also then look at how we can then continuously be able to add different screens and more features to the app without really changing the design system or keeping the design system and overall flow consistent. So there is a trick to it, and it's going to be something that we can actually look in the next video and also try to fix this issue. So we've now explored two ways actually. We've tried to also make it with cursor and using Figma as a design MCP server. So we will actually have the design already ready in Figma and connect our cursor IDE with an MCP server to be able to better design the interface. This other approach in today's video that we've explored is basically where we actually are using the Figma tool itself to generate the design, to generate the code and see it interacting real time. But of course, there is so much you can do within Figma. At the end of the day, you still have to go back to cursor at least today and do a bunch of more complicated business logic stuff if you have, right? Just Figma isn't enough for it. But what it is enough is to actually build small interfaces, small screens, prototype different animations, UI, and we'll try to get better at that in the next video, right? Cool. So this is kind of wrap up for today's video. We tried Figma Make tool. We looked at the TCEBC framework, which is task, context, elements, behavior, and constraints framework. So definitely, if you have something in your mind, try it out using Figma Make tool. Use this framework. I'm going to try to put the framework in the video description, try to put it on a GIST or some kind of like a text format so you guys can check it out and use it yourself. Don't forget to attach references and screenshot so it kind of like is able to build that design more and more to what you're expecting. And yeah, try to publish it. You can actually publish all of this here. We'll try to do it in the next video once we have fixed all of these issues, but have fun with it. Definitely let me know if you're able to figure out this issue, you have any tips on how to fix and prompt better in these kind of cases. Put it on the Discord. If you have not already joined the Discord, there is a link in the description for the Discord. Join the Discord. Yeah, we're trying to build a community of people who are just pushing the boundaries with all these AI coding agents, AI coding tools, trying different crazy stuff, trying to do different stuff that you wouldn't think is possible with these tools. All of these things are just new. You're just trying to explore the boundaries, push what is possible, and make them do crazy stuff and figure out what are the tips, trips. So definitely join the Discord. It's going to be fun there. Yeah, if you have any other suggestions, put it in the comment section. Like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel for the next video. I will see you in the next video. Until then, have fun, make more apps with these tools, share it. Have a good weekend. Ciao. Bye.